UFC 298 is happening this weekend, and in our final preview video for UFC 298, we are going to go over Ian Garry taking on Geoff Neal and Merab Dvalishvili taking on Henry Cejudo. I'm going to tell you who I think is going to win, how I think the fight's going to play out, all of the stuff in between. But before we get into this video, please give this video a like, comment who you think will win, and subscribe if you enjoy this content. Now let's get into it. In the co-main event, we have Geoff Neal, who's ranked 8th in the welterweight division, taking on Ian Garry, who's ranked 10th in the welterweight division. Geoff Neal is a plus 200 underdog, and Ian Garry is a minus 245 favorite. And this fight was supposed to happen months ago. It fell through, and now we are finally getting it, and this seems like a right time for this fight. Geoff Neal, in my eyes, is almost like a gatekeeper in the welterweight division. Now, I'm not saying he can't eventually become a title contender, because at one point he was, but I feel like Geoff Neal is a win-loss fighter. He'll win some good fights, and then he loses the fights that he needs to win in order to get to that next spot in career. Ian Garry, in my eyes, is the newcomer, and I believe he is the upcoming guy who honestly could be the next top 5 fighter in the welterweight division. From all the stuff that has happened with Ian Garry, it sucks, because Ian Garry gets a lot of hate, and a lot of people forget how good of a fighter he is, and I think that's why a lot of people pick against him. From the mugshot photo he had against Geoff Neal when they were supposed to fight the first time, all the way up to the stuff about his wife and the whole WAG situation and all that stuff. Ian Garry has done a lot where he screwed himself over, and then there's also been a lot on the other side where Ian Garry has received a lot of maybe death threats or hateful comments that he probably didn't fully deserve, right? Other than that stuff, all the attention stuff on Ian Garry, I think Ian Garry is that next upcoming guy, right? He has shown each fight that he's gotten better. He improves in a new area every time he fights, right? If you look at Ian Garry in the Neal Magny fight, who you just see this display of great kicking, distance management, really when to put the pressure on Neal Magny and when not to. He's shown pretty good adversity in that fight. You go to the fight before that, the Daniel Rodriguez fight, where he knocked out Daniel Rodriguez, and it was a beautiful KO, hit him with a high kick, dropped him, and then finished him out with some ground and pound. And then, just before that, in each fight into his UFC career, he's just gotten better and better. And we really don't know the full potential of Ian Garry, because we haven't seen all of his game really been challenged. We really don't know what Ian Garry's ground game looks like. We don't know what he's going to look like when he faces a wrestler or someone who is a high jiu-jitsu artist, or, anything in the grappling department, right? But we have seen his striking, and we've seen his power and his toughness. He's been dropped a couple of times, but overall he doesn't take a lot of damage, and I think that will help him a lot. Now with Geoff Neal is a hard hitter boxer. If you go back and watch the Shavkat Rakhmonov fight and Geoff Neal, there was many times where Geoff Neal was getting the best of Shavkat, but because Shavkat is so tough, durable, and has all of these skills, it's not easy to put him away. I think Geoff Neal also went into that fight overweight, and I think he had an injury, what a lot of people suspected of that. But if you go back and look at the Shavkat fight, Geoff Neal did give Shavkat some troubles. Now, Shavkat is a tough, durable fighter. He eats a lot of shots. Geoff Neal also got hit a lot too by Shavkat. I actually made a video on Shavkat Rakhmonov talking about how great of a fighter he is. Geoff Neal, he's a good fighter. He hits hard. He has pretty good striking. But when he fights the people that he needs to have wins against in order to get into that next level, he just seems to fold. And I think this could be a situation where we see Geoff Neal fold against Ian Garry. Geoff Neal is a boxer who has pretty good power. He closes distance pretty well, and he's not really looking to point fight you and bounce around and look for a decision win. Geoff Neal is trying to march in there and get knockouts, right? He has 8 knockouts in his professional career. He's 14-5. Geoff Neal isn't shy into getting hit just to throw a shot, right? Although Geoff Neal does have great power, and he's knocked out some great fighters. He knocked out Vicente Luque, knocked out Mike Perry, knocked out Nico Price. He's knocked out some very good UFC fighters. I don't think his power is going to be a real concern someone like Ian Garry. And in my opinion, I see Ian Garry winning this fight. I think Ian Garry will win the distance. I think he will try and point fight with Geoff Neal. I think even Ian Garry knows himself that it will be stupid if he goes in here and just tries to brawl it out with Geoff Neal, because I think that's where you see Ian Garry where he will lose, right? He doesn't have a chin where he's going to be able to eat a Geoff Neal shot. Like, you're just not going to be able to do that. I think Ian Garry will win this fight because I don't really see Geoff Neal taking this into the grappling department. I don't think Ian Garry will really have to worry too much about that. Now, Ian Garry has been training with Damian Maia and Charles Oliveira, so if hypothetically Geoff Neal, tries to engage in some grappling, whether it's trying to just wrestle or even try and submit Ian Garry, I think Ian Garry will be fine. I think Ian Garry will point fight this fight. He's going to keep the distance well, and I think you'll see a lot of leg kicks. The one thing I saw in the Shavkat Rakhmonov fight and the Geoff Neal fight that I was kind of surprised about, Shavkat didn't really throw that many leg kicks against Geoff Neal. He kind of just banged it out with all just hands against Geoff Neal the entire time. He threw some leg kicks, but not a lot. And I think if Ian Garry can get Geoff Neal to move around and not have him in a stationary place where, Geoff Neal, that's where he's going to load up his power, I think Ian Garry will be fine. As long as Geoff Neal is not in a stationary position, as long as he's not just standing there waiting to brawl it out where he can use all of his power, I think Ian Garry will win this. As long as Ian Garry keeps moving and he throws the leg kicks and point fights with Geoff Neal, I see Ian Garry beating Geoff Neal in a pretty close decision win. I think it would be hard to put out Geoff Neal. I don't think he's going to be able to knock him out, but I do think he will win in a decision. Now, in the next fight, we have a great fight, and this is actually my most anticipated fight besides the main event on UFC 298. Merab Dvalishvili taking on Henry Cejudo. Now, this fight is kind of unknown, and it feels like we really don't know who's going to win just because of the skill set of both fighters. Merab is this freak of an athlete who has like insane cardio. He can grapple really well, and his striking isn't like amazing, right? He doesn't have like insane power or flashy kicks or flashy strikes, but it's the cardio and the pace he's at where his striking just feels like it's overwhelming, right? And then we have Henry Cejudo, former bantamweight champion, former flyweight champion, and Olympic gold medalist, a champion who was great at wrestling and was almost unstoppable in the grappling department, turned into this striker who could like suddenly like put things together and kind of like fight through adversity, throw pretty good leg kicks, and really, fix up his striking game where he can strike more than he needs to grapple, right? You see this in the Dominic Cruz fight, the Marlon Moraes fight, the TJ Dillashaw fight, where Henry has gotten a lot better, not just in the grappling department, but in the striking. Henry Cejudo is getting older. He's 37 years of age, former champion, and he's fighting this young gun, 9-fight win streak fighter, Merab, who has unstoppable cardio. It really does seem like Merab never gets tired. And my favorite thing about Merab is his ability to not quit. Like, you very rarely see Merab just give up or quit or like give up a bad position. He's always the offensive person. He's always the hammer. And I think this is where the question of the fight comes to is, if Merab hypothetically like take down Henry, right, and he's just using his pure cardio, will he be able to outpace and pretty much just wear out Henry Cejudo, where Henry has his striking he can kind of rely on, and he has his grappling, where Merab is kind of relying on the cardio? I think Henry has gotten to the point where, I think that 3-year layoff, coming back and fighting Aljamain Sterling, losing in a split decision, really did hurt him, because I feel like, especially in the lower weight classes, but when you're in the fight game, you can't take a lot of time off. This is why I think like Conor McGregor, for instance, probably won't ever be the same. It's just because when you take a substantial amount of time off out of MMA, you just are not the same when you come back. The fighters around you evolve. Your opponents get better and bigger and faster, and they have new moves and they have new techniques and all this stuff. And I think for Henry Cejudo, not that Merab is going to do something that Henry has never seen before, but I just feel like from the physical pressure, from the physical strain, it just will not be the same from what Henry was used to when he fought, 3 years ago when he was a active. I think Merab will have a different type of pace. I think Merab will just have this different type of energy where Henry will just not be able to keep up with him. And I think that's how this fight will play out. I think Henry will land some good shots against Merab, but I do not see Henry be able to move enough to get Merab off of him or stop every freaking takedown, right? Merab had 40 49 takedown attempts against Peter Yan, right? That's insane. Like over a 5-round fight, right? That's insane. I think because this is a 3-round fight, Cejudo will have, a better chance of beating Merab than Merab will be beating Henry, right? But I still think overall, Merab should be the favorite, and he is the favorite, and he'll win this fight by just pure aggression, more cardio, better energy, all of that stuff. And I think even if Henry has better striking or he can stop half the takedowns, I don't think he's going to be able to prevent everything. I don't think his cardio will be there. I don't think he'll be able to keep moving. I just don't see Henry being at the same level or same pace that Merab will. And that is my prediction. I think Merab will win this. I think this will be a decision win. I'll probably say 29-28. I could see Henry winning maybe like first or second round, but I think Merab, he has a great ability to ramp things up, and he never gets tired, man. And those are my predictions. That's who I think is going to win. That's how I think the fight's going to play out. This wraps it up for my UFC 298 preview. I will be making a video right after UFC 298, giving my recap, my thoughts, and all that good stuff on UFC 298. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. See you in the next video.